So I'll just do a little bit here in the World War II hangar. There were two planes in particular I wanted to check out that I thought might be different from the last time I was here. And one was the disposition of the XC-99, which was the cargo version, one and only cargo version of the B-36. And I knew it was here, but I didn't know what had happened to it. And as it turns out, they gave it some kind of anti-corrosion treatment and sent it down to the Davis-Monthan Boneyard near Tucson, which is close to the Pima Air and Space Museum, where they're just storing it because it's better than storing it up here outside until the museum gets the financial resources to bring it back here and reassemble it for display and a subsequent restoration as well. So it's still in the system, it's just moved down to the desert until they're ready to handle it. And the other one is the Memphis Belle, which is new since I was here last. They had been restoring it when I was here last, but it's on display now. Like I said, I'm not going to try to identify all the planes again, since that's in my other videos. I was told that the other major change since I was probably here last, or probable change since I was here last, would have been that Hangar 3 has been rearranged quite a bit. So that may look different. And we got the Memphis Belle up here ahead. And this is the real Memphis Belle, not the Dave Talashe one that was going around painted up as the Memphis Belle. Strawberry Bitch over here, B-24. There we go. Nicely displayed, and it's wheels up, it's in flying mode. I was talking to the fellow who was working in there, and he says it's only about 70 degrees here in the museum, but it's at least 90 degrees inside the fuselage. That's why they have the air conditioner, and it's also a dehumidifier, of course, because it gets really mungy in there. But he said they're still tweaking things that weren't completely done when it went on display, adjusting some of the trim tab cables and things like that. It's a Bombay door screw jack there. Definitely tight quarters inside there. Have quite a display here. Pilot William, or Lieutenant Colonel William Weiler's uniform. Who I believe is the guy who did the original documentary on the Memphis Belle. Some nice cutaway drawings on the bombardier and navigator's compartment. Pilots.
Memphis Belle's primary flight hailed from across America in 1926 years. Pilot, aircraft commander Bob Morgan, Asheville, North Carolina. Co-pilot, Jim Veridis, in 5 missions. It's called B-17. Morgan called Bombardier Vince Evans, Fort Worth, Texas, Spark Plug, one of the best bombardiers in the 8th Army. Chuck Layton, East Lansing, Michigan, flew several missions, guiding the entire group and lead navigator. Carol Block of Green Bay, Wisconsin, flew 5 missions as a waist gunner on the Memphis Belle, and then became its flight engineer and top turret. Radio operator Bob Hansen, raised in Garfield, Washington, carried a Rabbit's fleet on combat missions for luck. Cecil Scott of Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, was almost too short to enlist. That worked to his advantage in the confines of the ball terrain. Waist gunner Bill Winchell, raised in Oak Park, Illinois, shot down a German fighter on the crew's last mission, May 17, 1943, one of 7 German fighters officially credited with the Memphis Belle. Scott Miller, in the middle, was from West Virginia. He volunteered for combat and joined the crew partway through the tour. Miller did not complete his 25th mission until July. Tony Naskau, of Detroit, Michigan, replaced Miller for the war officer. 19-year-old Naskau flew 25 combat missions, but only one in the Memphis Belle. Tail gunner John Cooler of Yonkers, New York,
to recognize their achievement. And King George VI and Queen Elizabeth personally visited the Memphis Belle's grave and its victims. In June, the Memphis Belle flew back to the U.S., becoming the first heavy bomber to return after flying 25 combat missions in the American War. For the summer, the crew took the Memphis Belle to more than 30 locations across America on a highly publicized World War II. Thousands greeted them at each stop, and the Memphis Belle and its crew became national celebrities, heralded in newspapers and newsreels. The Memphis Belle's appearance changed considerably after the combat. In June, before leaving England, the aircraft was adorned with publicity markings, and people wrote and carved their names on the aircraft during the combat. The Memphis Belle's fame spread even further with William Wyler's 1941 movie, Memphis Belle, A Story of a Flying Fortress, and the 1990 fictionalized movie titled Memphis Belle. Today, this iconic aircraft remains a unique symbol of the bomber crew's significant contributions in defeating Nazi Germany and the enormous sacrifices they made to achieve it. Some of the footage you are about to see has never before been displayed publicly. Famous Hollywood director Major William Wyler and his cameraman flew in combat on the Memphis Belle and other bombers to shoot this footage, sharing the same risks as the bomber crewmen. One cameraman, Lieutenant Harold Tannenbaum, a 46-year-old World War I veteran, was killed while filming on a mission in April 1943. The storied Memphis Belle flew its first combat mission on November 7, 1942, early in the strategic bombing campaign in Europe. The pilot, Robert Morgan, named the Memphis Belle in honor of his fiancée, Margaret Polk, of Memphis, Tennessee, and he carried a picture of her in the cockpit while flying missions. Talented artist Sergeant Tony Starcer touched up the original nose art, which had been painted in the U.S. from a pinup by George Petty. At the time, a bomber crewman could go home after 25 missions, but it was far more likely he would be killed, captured, or badly wounded before completing his tour. Bomber crews faced ferocious attacks from Luftwaffe fighters and skies filled with anti-aircraft fire known as flak. The Memphis Belle was hit on 7 of its 25 missions, with the worst damage occurring on a mission in January 1943. There were many close calls, like when a bullet
because of COVID-19, a lot of displays and things that are closer quarters are closed at this time. And I'll do a quick walk around in the third hangar. This is the one that supposedly has the most reorganization since I was here last. Got a B-36 front and center and a B-47, and a, is that a B-1? I always forget between B-1 and B-2. Which one's which? Don't know why. I have trouble remembering that, but chalk it up to age or something. Was having a long conversation with a few of the docents who were a little bit unsure about how many B-36s were on that still existed and how many were on display. And to the best of my recollection, there's this one, there's the one at the Sac Museum in Nebraska, there's the one at Castle Museum in California, and there's the one at Pima Air and Space Museum near Tucson, and there's the busted up one at Walter Saplata's farm, which I presume is still there, but that's not on display. I really couldn't think of any more than that. That may be it. I just don't remember what the layout of this hangar was when I was here last. I always liked this cutaway. All these panels could be removed. You could see the fittings that allow them to be removed for servicing equipment inside, which means that the structure of the plane is not done by the stressed skin monocoque arrangement, at least not entirely. If the panels can just be done with quick releases like this, then they can't be very structural. There's obviously a lot of framework here that's providing the actual structure.
Look here, Wyatt, look at this. Shows you the machine guns. Right here. That's the machine gun.
But back towards the rear, there's less internal structure, and I don't see a lot of quick releases. So I think the skin probably did have more of a structural significance in that area.
Oh, that's why, supersonic bomb.
These are still big tires. I think they're on the order of about 4 feet diameter, thereabouts. Maybe a bit bigger than that. Just eyeballing it. And that tube along there is the pressurized tube through the bomb bay that allowed crew members to get from the front pressurized compartment, crew compartment, to the rear pressurized crew compartment. This is a headbanger here if you don't watch it.
This one had 4, 3 or 4.
My recollection was that the SR-71 had roughly the spot where the B-47 occupies now. It's still near the center, but it's off to the side a bit. And one of my favorites, the C-133. Wonder if they have birds in here. There seems to be a bit of gunk on the windows. There's precious few of these on display as well. Got 1 or 2 of them down at Pima, and one at the Dover Air Mobility Command Museum, and this one. And I'm hard pressed to remember if there's any others anywhere. Used to be one at the Chanute Air Force Base Air Museum, or whatever it was called, but that one was scrapped to the best of my knowledge.
think it'd be interesting. Yeah. My granddad would love it.
And of course it is the B-2 bomber. I have a plastic model of a B-2, but it was done when they didn't have all the information from the Air Force, so they were kind of guessing at some things. And they had the shape of the landing gear door correct, but the size was off by quite a large factor. And it seems to me that the landing gear trucks took up probably 2/3 of the length of the landing gear door instead of less than half like it looks here. So the scale is a little bit iffy on that. Okay, so I'm going to go into the fourth hangar. The actual upper level gallery is closed at this time, but you can still look at the missiles from the ground floor. I always thought it was a little bit interesting that one of the unique things about the Titan II, actually I think it applied to the Titan I as well, is that even though it has two engine bells on it, it still is considered to be one engine, because those are just the bells. The actual engine is up there. It may be a fine point, but I've run across that information in quite a few different sources. And then these here, I believe, or at least one of these is the starter. Well, maybe the upper level is not blocked. People are going up there, so the announcement about it being closed apparently was not up to date. And this is the hangar that has spacecraft, experimental aircraft, and presidential aircraft, plus a few other things. don't think this one's changed a whole lot since I was here last. I don't recall if I covered this particular spacecraft in my previous videos, so I'm going to cover it here just in case. This is a Gemini B capsule, one of the special versions they made for the man-orbiting laboratory, which got started but never got to the point of actually having humans in space. They were going to have a, as the name suggests, a orbiting laboratory that was manned, and this was how they would get up there and back. And they had this hatchway between the seats that the astronauts could go through. And there's a special opening in the heat shield, and that would lead to a tunnel that led into the laboratory. A viable enough system, just they never got to actually put it into use for budgetary and political reasons. And this is the flown spacecraft from Apollo 15. We still have this dumb, disappointing, pointless, worthless, sort of kind of space shuttle mock-up here, which is just laughable. There's really nothing to see in it or outside of it. It takes up a huge amount of space in the museum that they could use for actual airplanes.
Wait.
And this museum may be the only one that has both a YF-12A and an SR-71, the two versions of essentially the same airplane, but with different missions and operating under different auspices. And of course the Valkyrie. The XB-70. Yeah, as I thought, going through the presidential aircraft appears to be not possible during the COVID-19 restrictions. This pretty much completes my quick update walkthrough. Again, I only really touched on a few areas here and there just to keep it fairly short. Always worthwhile coming by here. And it does seem like it's not as dark as when I was here the last time. Maybe the curators took some complaints to heart and beefed up the lighting a bit. There are still some planes that are in comparative darkness, but the majority of them are much better lit in areas that I recall being dark before. So the other thing that I'd meant to address while I was here, and I knew it wouldn't be on display, but I wasn't sure of its status, was the XC-99, which is the cargo version of the B-36. And there's only one of those built, but it did operate to great distinction as a cargo airlifter. And it was retired at Kelly Air Force Base in Texas for a long time, sat outside. And then it was finally moved in pieces on various C-5 transport flights here to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base area with the intention of restoring it and putting it in the museum. But according to the information office here, they got new management which decided that, at least at this time, the cost of restoring it and housing it was going to be prohibitive, and they weren't going to have room for it in any of the 4 hangars anytime soon. Maybe they'll build a 5th hangar at some point, but it just wasn't practical to put that much money into it when they were just going to have to park it back outside again. So it was decided to transport it down to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base at the infamous Amark Boneyard, which I have a video on, by the way, which is apparently where it is now. They gave it some sort of perfunctory basic anti-corrosion treatment, I'm told, before they shipped it down there, and it's probably wrapped in those hermetic white plastic wraps that all the other aircraft are in down there. And at some point in the future, it may be brought back here and restored and put on display, but it's not here anymore, and it isn't slated for restoration on any current program or schedule. Neither is it being scrapped, so that's what I learned here on this trip. here by the museum's C-17. This was the prototype C-17, and it was retired here after, I think, was it nearly 20 years of service doing various tests and so on. I don't recall ever taking a good look at the landing gear on this, but it has two trucks of 3 tires each. 2 of them are side by side, and then another one is staggered slightly farther forward, and they're on a trailing truck kind of arrangement. So the main strut is there, and then the landing gear, all 3 wheels, are on a trailing arm kind of arrangement. So when it's sitting like this, they're like this, but when the weight comes off the plane, they tip and hang more vertically off the strut. And like the C5, they rotate to fit inside the pontoons here. So once the plane is airborne, they swivel like this, or maybe it's the other way around, but they swivel so the wheels are facing 90 degrees the way they are here. And then I suspect they're lifted a little bit, I'm not sure, but when they're rotated like that, then the clamshell doors can come down and close around them. I don't think I'd ever looked at these closely before. I didn't realize that. But like the C-141, because of the shape of the, I keep calling them pontoons because I can't think of the correct name, but the tops of the struts, when the weight is on the airplane, jut upward, and instead of just making permanent bumps on the fuselage, they actually made these little doors that would flip open and allow the tops of the struts to project up through the fuselage like this. And then of course when the weight is off of them, they're down below where they are now, and the doors pop shut to make it more aerodynamic. Learn something new every day. There are only 4 airplanes out in the air park now these days. The C-17 prototype and the special version of the 707 that was set up with a special radar arrangement in the nose as part of the Apollo program for tracking. I think it's tracking of spacecraft. And then an aerial gunship on the C-130 platform, and then an A-10 way down there at the end. When I first started coming to this museum decades ago, there was only the one building, the main building there, and all their other airplanes were parked out on this air park, and you could walk up and down this area with the darker pavement, and then the planes are all parked wingtip to wingtip along this side and along that side, and it goes quite a ways back there. Of course, all those planes are indoors now and have been for quite a long time, but there are a few of these stragglers that they don't have room for inside. Maybe when they build a 5th hangar, right? The COVID-19 restrictions at the museum at this time in the beginning of August 2020 includes that the Quonset huts and the old RAF tower are closed at this time, in addition to some of the other things I mentioned while going through the museum. Still, the majority of everything is open and functional, so it's still a good time to visit, and it's not so crowded.